Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's May 14th, 2019. I'm over in the work area, and this is another video in the sweet potatoes starting series. Previously, I think I posted 4 or 5 videos in the series. I started off with getting some organic sweet potatoes, and we took those, we washed them off, soaked them, and then put them in a soilless mixture similar to what we have right here, and they started sending up slips within a couple of weeks. I can't remember exactly how long. And one of the things we noticed was that there was a bacterial storage disease, which we removed all of the affected sweet potatoes. We started off with 2 different flats, 2 different flats with sweet potatoes in them, and we ended up with about 1 1/3 or 1 1/2 in total flats with sweet potatoes, the number of sweet potatoes distributed between them. And they did very well. They were on a heated mat in our house under a 4-tube T5 fluorescent light fixture. And they grew extremely well, and I made a couple of videos during the time and some time-lapse video with the growth of those sweet potatoes in there. Then we ended up transferring the sweet potatoes from the heat mat in the den area of our house, where they were under the fluorescent light, and I put them into the living room so that they could have more expansion for the sweet potato vines as they came down. So we put it up pretty high in the window, and we kept them there probably 2 or 3 weeks, and they probably got 3.5 foot long vine extensions. And at that point, I decided I'd bring them over here into the work area and put them underneath one of these 4-foot stands. We have 4 different wire shelf stands with fluorescent lights underneath the fixture. And again, we started off with 2 of these flats, and we had the sweet potatoes just sitting in the top of them. And what we ended up doing was we took the 2 flats, and so this is one of the 2 flats over here. Hopefully you can see that. And I took another flat that was just a soilless mixture, plain like this, and I put them end to end, just like they're end to end here. And I took those vine extensions and just sort of wrapped them around, set them into the surface of the soilless mixture, and sort of like dug them down a little bit. And what ended up happening was they threw down some nice roots in here, but the 2 flats were intimately associated with each other and completely hooked together. And they were here for a few weeks in the work area, and a week and a half ago, I think it was, now we had lots of aphids all over them. They were just going crazy. We had ordered some green lace wings, and unfortunately they just never emerged from their package. We followed the instructions and all, but the larvae never emerged from them, so I'm not sure what had happened with those. So since they were completely loaded with the aphids, and some of the leaves were dying and all, the vines were still growing, I decided, even though it's been very cold, dark, and wet here, we had one day where the temperature got real close to 70 degrees, but for the most part we've been in the lower 40s or in the upper 30s at nighttime. And it gets up to about 50 degrees or the low 50s during the daytime, with lots of overcasts and lots of rain over these last couple of weeks. But I had them outside. Thea helped me carry them since the 2 trays were attached to each other, and we put them out into one of the hoop tunnels in the western garden area. And today I went out there, and I couldn't see any more aphids on it. Lots of the leaves. Sweet potatoes really require the soil temperature to be above 55 degrees or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And they didn't enjoy their time out there. They really didn't do any more growth. They just sort of went into a dormant state. But as I had hoped, most of the aphids disappeared. So today, since it's going to be down into the 30s again tonight, I decided I'll go out. I used a pair of scissors, and I cut separated the 2 trays. So we started off with 2 trays initially, Then we took those 2 trays and I put them on 2 separate seed starting racks. These are almost 4 foot wide. So we set one on each tray, and then I took one tray that was just a soilless mixture, wrapped the vines around it, had them here and here, so there were really 4 trays in total at this point. They went outside due to all the aphids and all, had the cold temperature, went out today, and I separated them. So I already processed 2 of the trays. These are the other 2, and again, the leaves don't look great, but at least they're not loaded with the pests at this point. And what I'm doing today is, which is another experiment. Now, in the past, I've been starting them strictly in perlite, just plain perlite inside of these trays. So there's a support tray underneath this, which is just a tray like this. And then I have 2 trays here. I have a perforated tray and a non-perforated tray. The non-perforated tray is on the outside, and that's so I can water these inside. So now I'm cutting up the sections of these vines. Now, all of these vines that have been touching the soil, they've all sent down roots, and I'm separating some of those and ending up out of the first 2 trays, I ended up getting 12 trays. So I'll probably get another 8, 10, or 12 trays out of this. So I'll have more than enough. And we'll see just how well it works. I'm shooting some GoPro footage as I'm going through this process, so you can see just how I'm cutting them up. I'm cutting mostly just below a leaf node and burying a couple of them, cutting off most of the leaf structure on it, hoping that they're going to send down roots. But even if none of the non-rooted slips actually produce roots, we'll have more than enough for our system, as long as we don't have some other catastrophic event. So in about 2 weeks' time, it'll be Memorial Weekend, and that's usually when we start doing our big transplants out here, because we can't really rely on the temperature not getting below the freezing point and doing more damage out there. So over the next couple of weeks, these cuttings that I'm making from this area and the transplants, I'm cutting up and leaving some root material and planting them in here. And I'm filling this up. Now these are about 2 inches deep, 1.5, 1 3/4 to 2 inches deep. I'm filling them up about 3/4 of the way full with the soilless mixture that's been pre-moistened. And I'll go ahead and put my cuttings in here, and then I use the perlite to top the whole area off, just in case there's any more bare exposed roots as well. And the perlite really drains pretty well, so I really don't want the top of this soilless mixture getting moist. We can have mold growing on it, we can have algae on here. We want to keep it fairly dry. But the sweet potatoes do pretty well with the base of it, let's say 1/4 inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, let's say 2.5 millimeters of water in the very, very bottom of the tray. They tend to do really well because there's that wicking action, and then they can send down their roots there, and those roots really distribute significantly. If they do pretty well, then in about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, the roots won't be so, probably won't be so expansive that they're going to intermingle with each other and that will do much damage to the roots. At least that's my hope. That's what I've had in the past. So this is one more experiment in the process. There'll be some GoPro footage of the process that we've done. I did post, I think in one of my Ask Me Anything, most recent Ask Me Anything videos, some time lapse of the sweet potatoes as they were growing over here in the work area, where the trays were next to each other. Not much fascination with that. It isn't like they're totally emerging, but it does work out pretty well. There is that footage if you do want to see it. So I'm going to get finished here. I'm going to get started again on these next 2 trays and see how things go. So there'll be some GoPro footage here. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I really appreciate your input and your thoughts and suggestions and your encouragement as well. And by all means, folks, have a great day. Bye-bye now.